All right, all right, all right. We're coming in hot this morning. It's been a minute since an episode of Camp Content has gone live, but here we are. I know you guys have missed us so tremendously, and we have an excellent guest today. I'm super excited to introduce today's guest, Kelly Feldkamp. She's a trailblazer in the world of workplace health and wellness. She's the visionary founder of Provention Plus, a groundbreaking on-site injury prevention company that's revolutionizing the way companies care for their manual labor and craft employees. With a master's degree in exercise and wellness, Kelly has dedicated the last two decades of her life to perfecting the art of helping what she calls job site athletes move better and live pain-free, which I love, by the way. Like, job site athletes is so accurate. I don't think like hardworking people get enough credit for how physical that labor is. She is the brilliant mind behind the Move Better program, which is a transformative approach that has touched the lives of thousands of individuals in physically demanding professions. But what sets Kelly apart is her unwavering passion for empowering job site athletes to reduce the discomfort that many have come to accept as an unfortunate part of their profession. She firmly believes that pain shouldn't be an occupational hazard, and she's on a mission to prove it. So on a personal note, Kelly is her achievements extend well beyond her impressive professional endeavors, but she's also a devoted mother of three amazing boys and has a pretty cool husband too. I can attest for that. And is balancing her family and career with grace and determination. That's a good one right there. So Kelly, thank you for joining us. Excited to have you on. As you know, but our audience doesn't, we've been working with you for a couple months now, getting you booked on some podcasts and doing some stuff. And so, yeah, it's really exciting to have you here. So thanks for coming on the show today.
No, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you a little bit and just spend some time with you guys.
Yeah, well, I got to say, you have a super sweet setup there. You got a nice microphone. You got the whole...
I'm all set. I'm very careful with everything, too. No, it's great. Yeah, it's great. We've got it all figured out over here, and we're ready for podcasts and ready to kind of get our message out there a little bit, make some changes in the culture of the job site, on the job site.
Yeah, well, your studio looks super good. I'm kind of jealous. I used to have a lot of like dark panels and stuff, but now I live in the land of sunshine, so it's impossible to.
Oh yeah, what a bummer, Molly.
I know. Feel very sorry for me. I'm sure you will. So Kelly, tell me a little bit about Provention. When did you form Provention Plus? And I'm just curious because I'm somebody who's lived in pain my whole life. And while people are empathetic to it, if it's not your life, it's not the same, right? And it's hard to find somebody who really understands how difficult that can be. And it's really hard to find somebody to advocate for you. So how did you find yourself in this world of, obviously benefiting businesses, but like truly caring about people? Where did that all come from?
Yeah, I think so I started back at college. I went to college for kinesiology. So I was really interested in human movement to begin with. That was part of it right there. And then I went on and got a master's in exercise and wellness, was just a fancy way of saying health promotion, I think, or getting you ready to go on for more learning. And I was like, well, you know what? The master's is cool. I learned a lot, but I don't want to go into research on exercise. I already felt like, let's just get me out there and start working with people. And I had the opportunity at one point to work with a chiropractor who set himself up in the industrial setting. And I thought, wow, this is an interesting idea. And he's like, I want you to be a part of this. Why don't you start stretching people? And I was like, great. I know fitness. I can stretch with people. But I realized there's something missing. I can't just go out to someone and say, they're like, my shoulder doesn't feel good. I'm like, okay, stretch. And they're not going to, that's not going to make a big impact for them. So at that point, then I started getting into like, what else can I do? And because I was seeing all these people come in and they were really in pain and they had to do their job anyways and it didn't matter. So they would go home at the end of the day and they would lay on the ground for like an hour or 2 hours just so they could get up the next morning and do it again and still feel terrible. So I started looking into massage therapy. I started looking into how can I actually have a better effect on people's bodies. And so over the last 20 years, with combination of manual therapy, so massage therapy techniques and stretching and exercises and breathing, I can combine all this stuff into being able to work with people who otherwise aren't getting the help that they would need. Now, I know there's people everywhere that are in pain, and you being one example. And sometimes we know what to do, sometimes we don't know what to do, but I want to be that person who can reach out to someone and show them that there is maybe something that they can do. Of course, it's not going to work for everybody, but the majority of people, there is a certain something that they can do to help themselves feel a little bit better, to make their job better, to make their day better, to make their life better. inevitably my goal overall. Yes, of course, I want to save the company money, but my goal is how can I make that person enjoy their life a little bit more, have a little bit more get up and go when it comes to their kids or their friends or their family, that kind of thing.
Or just not feel like crap sitting in a chair all day.
Correct. And that's the thing too. Actually, interestingly enough, I mean, you think about it, the job site athlete is someone who's out doing manual labor all day long. And that's like my passion, right? To help those folks that are out there moving all day, because that's how they make their money. But the people that have to sit at the desk all day long too also have situations too. So I'm happy always to work with those folks too. I get the opportunity with a company to work from executive to manual labor and everyone in between, administrative assistant, you name it. I'm there to help them with, our team is there to help their team, basically.
Love it. So you said you don't have to just go tell somebody to stretch and hope it works, but now you can do all of this. Are there some certain examples or some success stories that you have from that? Maybe since you now do say you work with the working manual labor people, and maybe a story from somebody like myself who sits here all day and has to go like this, and just got a new chair actually last week for my birthday. So
very
it's a little more comfy now, but yeah, if you have anything from those two.
Definitely. Well, so the ones where I really like to, this is one that got me, and I don't know why it hit me so hard, and maybe it's not the same for everybody, but there was a guy on the job site, and he was having major cramping in his legs as well as some foot pain pretty regularly for years and years. And he would come in regularly to see me and our staff, and we see each other once a week, basically. And he came in one day, a couple of like weeks after seeing me for the first time. He's like, you know what? I don't have to have my wife rub my feet every night after work anymore. And I was blown away, because for me, the last thing, honestly, that this man's wife needs to be doing is rubbing his feet every night when he gets home from work, because he's in so much pain. And so now I freed them both up, from him from pain, her from having to do something she probably doesn't want to do, even if she likes him very much. She doesn't need to sit in
not every
his
day.
feet every night, right? So that was a big, big win for me, and I just felt super excited about that one. One of the other ones, actually from sitting guy that sits at his desk all day long, is he was dealing with sciatica for a really long time, and he was so limited in the things that he could do in general, but certainly like outside of work. And he came back one day and he said, I got to tell you, Kelly, I was able to go for a walk with my kids last night, and it did not cause me pain. And for me, again, that was something that just made me feel so excited, because, and I don't get to see these folks every day. It's not like we get to work with them on a daily basis. The point is, regularly, once a week, once every 2 weeks, we're following up. We're making sure we're keeping track of what's going on with them. And again, we're giving them the information that then they can take for themselves to make the small changes that hopefully will create big changes in the world. Those two examples are like ones that kind of hit me hard.
I guess a quick follow-up to that, are you specifically going in, obviously, and just helping, but are you also at the same time maybe looking for tendencies in that workplace environment or what they do on a daily basis that could cause that to happen?
This is the key. So let's do two different scenarios here. One, sitting at a job, sitting on a computer. So a lot of times we talk about ergonomics. We talk about chairs, right? Getting the right chair, getting the right computer monitor, all of these things, all wonderful things. This is your environment. Make it as productive as possible for you. But we're still dealing with the human being, and the human being that puts themselves in this situation. So for example, I'm sitting at my desk all day long, and I'm actually talking to someone over here, but I don't even realize that I'm doing it like for hours and hours a day. And then they come in to see me and they've got pain in their neck and they don't know why. So that's a really simple thing, is I say, take me through your day. And if I have the opportunity, I'll often go see desks. I'll see the setup and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take both of your monitors. We're going to put them right in front of you. We're going to make some shifts. So now when you need to do work this way, you actually turn your entire body that way. Simple, but you don't notice it when you're doing it every day. It's not part of your, you don't see that. And then in the job site, one of the best ones that I see often is just say an interior guy who's carrying sheetrock or drywall all day long. He lifts it up and puts it down the exact same way all day on repeat, 8 hours a day at minimum. And then he's doing that 5 or 6 days a week. And so people literally come in a little crooked. And so the idea is, hey, this is what you're doing all day long. Let's give you a movement to do the opposite of that. So I will then take them through an exercise where they're not lifting anything, but they're doing the opposite motion. The key for me, if I can have any impact on someone, is to say, hey, move your body in a different way than you have to all day long. So what is the most opposite motion that you can do? Not extreme, just opposite. If you work bent over all day long, you got to open things up. If you work up like this, you got to bring things down. So, and if I can just get that little seed in there, when someone's been doing something and doesn't feel great, they're like, I got to twist to the left, or I got to twist right? So that's kind of like everything. It's not rocket science at all. It is super simple. I keep it as simple as possible. My team and I were like, we need to make people remember. And so it doesn't need to be complex in any way, shape, or form. Now, in our minds, how we're thinking about it is like, okay, we're working on these muscles, we're doing this. So it's a little bit more in depth for us, but it's still simple concept.
So yeah, that kind of touches on like physical therapy, right? Because you feel like you're doing like really, silly moves. They're so small. They don't really feel like you're doing anything, but then surprise, like the pain goes away and you start feeling better because it's just those opposite movements, like you said. And I feel like what you do is really important because, like, as somebody who's dealt with this a lot, people will say, oh, we'll do this exercise every morning. And they want me to like get on the floor and put my legs on the wall. And I'm like, do you have any idea that I move like a 2,000-year-old skeleton in the morning? And like, I can't even get on the ground. And if I get there, I'm not going to get back up again. And that might work if you're like a yoga chick on Instagram, but like, that ain't me, dude. You know what I mean? So I think like really tailoring things to where these people are at, because, the content out there is not for them. It's not for them at all. So
no, you meet people exactly where they are, and you each person is gonna be completely different. Like everything that I would ever tell you to do is likely going to be while you're laying down in bed before you even get out of bed.
As it should be, because that's about as good as it's going to get anyway. So, we can imagine me on the floor, but, it's not going to happen.
It's in dreams. It's good.
So what are some key signs of, because let me back it up a little bit. Provention Plus works with these large companies, right? And so what is a big sign for a company that they need somebody like you to come in? What are the indicating factors?
Yeah. The big indicators are high level of soft tissue injuries, which are just strains, sprains, things that are happening from chronic overuse, overextension type situations. Anyone in this like work environment, they'll know what a soft tissue injury is, and they'll know like, hey, we've got really high numbers. They cost the company a lot of money, which is obviously a big deal. But in addition to that, they cost on loyalty of your employees. People don't want to work for a company that has nonstop injuries, especially since the injury care for folks is pretty bleak. And I will say this, like in the future, another goal is we're going to try to help change that process as well. But for now, we're sticking on the prevention side because we can make such a big difference there. But really, so you're looking at a company that has high injuries and or the high possibility of injuries, something where there's a super repetitive task that has to happen by human beings. Technology isn't meeting us there, and or if it tries, it doesn't do it quite as well. And I will say this again, or as well as we'd like it to. Also, we're still dealing with a human being. And the human being brings their own issues to the setup, whether it be previous injuries, whether it be they don't sleep because they have a puppy or a baby at home. They don't they don't eat well. They're not healthy in general. They don't have a general level of health. These things, no matter how much technology we bring to it, are always going to be a factor. So take a look at your workforce. Let's start changing the culture and how we want to take care of them, knowing that we can prevent these injuries and keep your craft workers with you longer and as effective as possible.
So what kind of companies are you working with? Like, how are these really big construction companies, or like who you work?
Yeah, so you kind of the big deal. It's got to be a little bit of a bit larger company in order for it to make sense for Provention Plus, for example, to be on site. Is when there's 50 folks or more on a project, 50 and up, and we can work with them. It can be construction. It can be warehousing. Basically, anywhere where there's manual labor happening. What we're trying to figure out is how to expand into other arenas other than just the manufacturing and the construction, because it's the hardest part is when you've got workers that are spread out far and wide. If you've got people in one spot, this is where Provention is the most effective in terms of the actual hands-on work that we do. The warm-ups that we do, which is just almost every industrial setting that you'll ever be in now has some sort of a stretch and flex where they say, okay, everybody get together at the beginning of the day and you're going to do your warm up or your stretch and flex, which is really, and this is absolutely true. How well can you count to 8 seconds? Basically, they're like, hold the stretch for 8 seconds, hold this stretch for 8 seconds. And they're like, okay, go to work. It's not a warm up. So Provention Plus has reinvigorated or restored like some movement, we're creating some movement patterns to get people ready for work. So anyone can do that. And that's what we're working on too. That's our next phase of just pushing out an app, which is going to be available to companies that are on the smaller side, that don't have we can't get in there to do our sessions like that, but you're still going to have an effect on your whole group of people that are working. If that answers your question.
Go ahead, Matt.
No, I'm just like interested.
Oh, okay. So speaking of technology, not kind of keeping up, like, in this world of AI, right, and being able to come up with all these answers and conclusions and read data points and stuff, how do you see that impacting the work that you're doing? How does that tie in?
Yeah. I'm interested to see what's going to end up happening. It's been, and not to take it off AI, but for a moment, I've worked with some folks in some of the companies that we work with, and their whole goal is innovation. So I get to see all these kind of cool things within some industries, and they're coming up with some amazing things. There's something, I'm no joke, it's called like the exoskeleton, and you put it on and it helps you with the work that you do because of the fact that you're doing repetitive motion. So here's a perfect example. It goes on your upper body and it helps you hold your arms up. So if you're an electrician and you've got work up in the ceiling for like hours on end, you don't have to hold your arms there. Your arms are just there. I'm like, this is amazing. I tried one on. I'm like, how cool is this? And then like you try to bring your arms down to grab a tool or to do something, and you have to work to bring it down. So, okay, right? So it's not there yet. They're gonna get there. They're gonna make it great. I know they are. We're all gonna be walking around like RoboCop here. But the problem with that is then our bodies don't have to do the work. And so my thought is like, we're yes. And simply, okay, if you've got a repetitive work that needs to be done, let's take these technologies and let's use them, and there's a place for them. Making sure we fully understand that is not the answer, because the answer is we've got to get people stronger or healthier, however you want to look at it, to do the job. Because I know we're going to get away from, there's not going to be as high of a need for all the craft workers we have now. I know that things are changing, but there will always be a need for some. And so we can keep those men and women healthier, stronger, and more efficient at what they're doing. They're going to have a long, productive, and they're going to make a good money taking care of their family or themselves. But if we say, oh, you don't need to worry about how strong or healthy you are, you just come here and put this thing on, and we're going to set your environment up for you. We're just going down a really poor path, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit too much of a lean on technology, because you really need to be you need to have that strength. You need to exercise those muscles and have a strong core and all that to be able to balance out everything else, because it's all relative, right? So then you start probably having problems with having your arms up too much, right? And being in that position. That's not a normal human position to be like
100%.
I just had to Google it. It looks just extremely uncomfortable too.
Right. And there's that.
It looks like the movie Elysium with Matt Damon, where they wear those suits and the things in the back of your head. And yes.
Crazy. And then like, think about it too. If you're not the exact right size for it as well, like there's a lot of, I mean, it's cool, right? There's some cool stuff that they're doing. They're figuring these little things out are going to be really interesting, but how that kind of plays into it. And then AI too is maybe we'll start to figure out, companies will start asking questions like, what's going to keep my people like with me longer? And the answers are going to be general health, flexibility, mobility, stability, right? Like changing up jobs, or there's if they start to look at these, the answers are already there. So really, I guess that it comes back to, it's like, we almost have to stop looking at technology and start going back and looking back and saying, hey, what has kept us healthy in the past? And like, not necessarily job site athletes, but people. Let's stop. We don't need to look at all the fancy stuff. Let's go to move well, eat as well as you can, be as strong as you can, sleep well, like all these basics, pull these in, and then we have a better setup. So shortly, day by day, job site by job site, company by company that we work with, we're changing the culture, because we're saying, hey, look, my background is massage therapy. We hire massage therapists, we hire athletic trainers, we hire people that work in physical therapy. at the end of the day, the old guy on the job who's been there for like, 50 years is like, you're doing what with construction workers? Like, what are you, nuts? Like, that's crazy. I want no part of it. But then you come in for a session and you see it's a clinical approach. We're giving you exercises. We're not here to give you cucumber water and rub your toes. Like, we're literally here to say, hey, maybe if that's necessary, but no, we're here to say, hey, these are the things that are going to help you, again, work better, but live better, right? Yeah. Get the job done. But then at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the year, at the end of your career, you're in a better place.
Yeah. And you've kind of, you said things from the past, seeing what works and what hasn't. And I feel like you've kind of answered this from a broad scope of developing things moving forward. But what are some things, maybe that trends, developments that kind of excite you specifically?
I think really more than anything, it's the openness, right? The openness that people are starting to have, that there are options for that in wellness that we're seeing, right? So like there's a big thing about sleep right now. There's a big thing about like making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you eat like a generally healthy diet. We're actually talking about that stuff in like the mainstream, and that more and more people are getting involved in these these industrial settings that maybe think that it's important for themselves and want to push that down the chain for everyone else. So I think that's one of the biggest thing I can say is there's a cultural shift happening. It is happening. It's going to take a long time still, depending on the type of people that are in these industries. Like the good old boys like to say it like that, but it's true. Like, I did it this way, so this is how we're going to do it. It got the job done, and that's great. Yeah. But the reality is there's a better way to do it. And look at you moving around here, sir, at 62. Like, you're not moving well. And I'm not saying like let's shift that. Let's make sure people do move a little bit better when they get out of this career. And so I would say in terms of wellness trends, the younger folks that are coming in, again, think it's important for themselves. And then they start to say, hey, I think this would be great for everybody else too. So let's start to accept these things that are happening on the job site, not just be like, okay, fine. We have to do our warm up in the morning. They're like, hey guys, let's do the warm up. I'm doing it with you. Yeah.
Like, let's just all pop in and do it real quick.
Yeah.
Right, so my next question to you is, let's talk about like the real wins with Provention Plus and the companies that you work with. And I know that we're talking a lot about caring for people and setting them up for success, and I'm all for that, right? I read this book one time. I can never remember the name of it, but it said the safer we try to make things, the more dangerous they become. Like seatbelts or like, single-use plastic water bottles, like they can help a lot of people, but they're also like killing the planet, right? Like, and he talks about how the most fragile thing on the planet is probably light bulbs, and they're still shipped in like this thin corrugated cardboard, right? And then, so it's just kind of like the more safe we make them, the more complicated. So it's kind of like the exoskeleton, right? It's like okay, it's a cool idea, but they're super expensive. And I mean, if you look at a job site, you got dudes out there that are literally 4'2" to 6'5", right? So like, I don't even know how the heck that would work. So dialing it back in on this like very basic stuff, right? Like, what are the actual wins, the financial revenue wins for these companies that are engaging with you? Like, what kind of savings do they look at? What does that really translate to them at the end of the day?
Yeah. So what you got to look at first of all is you have to look at the cost of these injuries. So just a medically seen injury on and I'll speak specifically of construction right now. A cost of one medically seen injury that could be like the simplest little thing. $40,000. If you have to go take someone to the clinic and it becomes a recordable, it is $40,000 for like a small little ankle sprain that will be healed shortly. But that's the way the system works. So on average, if you can prevent any of those, right, you're going to see the saving side of that. So that's the first thing that we look at is like, how can we reduce the number of injuries so that therefore reducing the cost? Then you're going to look at a benefit of that. On the side, there's a rating that happens within these industries too. The better rating they have, the better insurance they're going to be getting. So you're bringing that down. We're looking at that. And then finally, and the most important part, obviously to me, because this is where my passion lies, is that you're going to create that better setup. You're going to bring more good people into your company. You're going to keep the people around as well longer, because they're going to see, hey, not only do they provide good pay and this, but they're not driving us into the ground, and they're providing this Provention Plus, which is going to keep people feeling good and working well. So yeah, so those are, but the big money win part is like, how can we reduce those actual injuries and not just the ones. See, here's the thing that's interesting. So you have the cost of the injuries, but then inevitably, you've got the people that are walking around injured that aren't going to say anything. and they're not doing anything on the job. I mean, they're working, but they're not being effective, and they're not being efficient at all in their time and their work. And they're not going to be like helpful to anyone else. Like, look, if you got to carry something heavy with someone else and that person's kind of injured, how's that going to go? So all of these factors play into each other. So we're really trying to make people understand that from the, the ones that are sitting in the C-suites, just saying like, hey, let's make sure that we build this building really fast. Well, let's make sure we do it well. And the people that are actually building it are out there are doing it well as well and feeling well. So, yeah.
Because I would imagine like turnover is expensive, especially
these
days, right? Like trying to find people.
Oh my gosh.
Trying to get people to stay on the job, like trying to get people to come to work in general, right? It's a different times nowadays, apparently. So
it's very difficult. And the people that are coming into the trades as well, there's way less. There's way less. You just don't have them. So how do you keep those older people feeling good for longer?
Makes a big difference. So Kelly, if a company is like watching this and interested in what you're saying, what is the best way for them to get a hold of you, engage with you, talk to you about how you can help with their recordables and their expenses and their retention numbers?
For sure. Well, if they're interested at all in seeing a little bit more about it, of course, you can go to the LinkedIn page. It's Provention Plus. You can go to the Instagram page to see some of our exercises that we put up there. That's also Provention Plus. And then maybe I can give you our phone number and put it in the show notes. That'd be great. And you can directly connect with myself or with Brian, my business partner and husband, and we can answer any questions you guys have. Be great. Be awesome.
Excellent. Well, if I owned a construction company, I would call you, but I also know how important all that stuff is and how important stretching. I mean, it's such a simple thing, right? And I think we live in this age of like, oh no, there has to be a pill or a candy I can take or
definitely a candy
suit I can wear at the end of the day. You're like, no, that's not like you just got to do the work. But sometimes, just like in physical therapy, like the smallest little movements can really strengthen something and make a huge difference. I know I'm a runner. And just doing T-band stretches makes a difference between me being able to function as a human being in life or being crippled over in pain. And it's like a 15-second stretch makes all the difference in the world.
Well, hell, just even a company getting their employees that's a standing desk.
Yes.
I feel like that could.
Yes. And here's the key with that too, with standing desks, I think they're wonderful, is the minute you see yourself shifting and holding one position while you're standing, that's when you sit for 5, stand back up. And also you should have something close by, either a stool or something that's almost like, in a bar where you have that little footrest. You want something because then you can raise your foot up and then alternate side to side, because then you'll stay standing longer and you won't be in a bad position. But you want to be able to stand up for long. But if you do this, standing, it's just as bad as sitting. So you're just leaning over. The whole idea of standing is to promote movement, because movement is the key. Movement is definitely the key. So
it's like you go on these standing desk websites and like you can add the add-on for an extra $199. That's a little mini treadmill that you walk on under your desk. You're like,
okay, dude.
Because I bought one like 2 years ago and then I moved, and I was kind of a dummy. I like mounted my stuff to my wall, but now I went to raise my desk and I was like, can't raise my desk because my monitors are mounted to my wall, not to my desk. So it doesn't work.
There's too many things to think about. You were on the right track though.
Oh, you're like, come on.
I know. I've been thinking about actually creating like a standing desk area that like I could just work at sometimes, maybe with a laptop and a keyboard, and then like have my, because with the mic and the camera, right? Like it's not always practical, but there's ways
definitely ways of doing it.
Well, Kelly, thanks for coming on the show today. I think what you do is super cool, but I've also been impacted by these things for, my entire life. So I definitely recognize the importance of it. But, if I was a company owner, I think the bottom line, right? Like even if you're not listen, as a business owner, you want to be concerned, but sometimes you can't afford to be as concerned as you would like to be, right? You're like, okay, I'm not a jerk, but where is this coming from, right?
Right.
But I think with yours, it's a no-brainer, right? Like you're saving them so much money that whatever the cost is to hire you is like easily covered by the amount of money you're saving them on these recordables. So I hope that, whoever's listening to this, if they know any construction business owners, they tell their friends, because this seems like a really smart way to head into the next phase of this post-COVID, world that we live in, right?
Yeah. stay focused on your people that are actually doing the work for you and keeping the business going, because if you don't have them, you don't have a business, and they're not expendable. You can't be like, I'll just get another one. Like, that's just not how it works. So as long as we can keep our mind on that, and again, like I said, I'm changing the culture one company, one job site at a time, one superintendent stretch. Or showing them some movement. So that's all. But yeah, it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to continuing to expand as we are.
Absolutely. Well, Kelly, thanks for coming on the show today, and we'll see you again real soon. And if anybody would like to book Kelly on their podcast, hit me up. As you can see, she's got a killer setup. And of course, hit up the website and connect with Kelly, get those discovery calls popping, get her in to show you guys what work she can do to save you money and keep your employees super happy. So on that note, thanks for tuning into Camp Content, and we'll see you real soon. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Camp Content. This is Molly.
And this is Matt.
And we are Heartcast Media, a.k.a. Camp Content, and we appreciate all of your support. If you found this content valuable, please comment on social media, LinkedIn, wherever you find us, and we will make sure to comment back.
And be sure to go on and subscribe and like on your favorite platforms, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, you name it. Leave us that subscription. Leave us that good review.
We'll love you forever. So until next time, be excellent to each other, and we'll see you next week.
Produced by Heartcast Media.